Welcome to Audacity Marketing with Hazel Kimpo and Michelle Frechette. On this podcast, we'll challenge you to think differently and break free of the same old strategies. We'll push you out of your comfort zone and encourage you to think outside the box. So take notes, make bold decisions, and be audacious. Hey, Hazel.
Hi, Michelle. Glad to be back.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
So, we are talking today about all things in-person networking. But you know what? Welcome to Audacity Marketing Podcast. We don't do a good welcome. I think we need to jazz up our welcome.
I mean, we have an intro, but yeah, it's a
Oh,
little.
that's right.
It might be lackluster. I don't know. Might need to redo
We'll have
it.
to revisit it. We'll take it. I'll have to listen to it. I listen to
Yeah.
us and then I forget the intro. But
Yeah,
anyway,
same.
welcome to Audacity Marketing Podcast. Today we are pumped about WordCamp US coming up next
It's in a
week.
week, yeah.
Michelle is going to be there. I'm not going to make it this year, but we are talking about all things in-person networking.
Yeah.
So, Michelle,
Yes.
number one thing I think, and you are so good at this skill, is an elevator pitch. Tell me your
Pitch is
secrets.
important. Yeah. So it's important to have have those words in your back pocket, right? So practice them. What is it that your company does? So I learned this when I was when I first started working for Give and I started talk about working with plugins. People outside of the WordPress circle, they'd be like, oh, what does Give do? I'm like, oh, we're a plugin company. Plugins are those things that blah, 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 blah. And the eyes would just glaze over like, oh my God, she's talking tech, make her stop. So I revised that to say, I work for Give WP. It's a company that helps make that helps other companies fundraise, whether it's a nonprofit, a for-profit, or a couple trying to plan their wedding. And people will be like, oh, that's so cool. I'm like, okay, that is the right pitch. The other one was not.
I love that. I think one of the best ones I always ever hear it say, I think Rand Fishkin says this a lot, is the way to introduce yourself is saying, I do X for Y. And Y isn't always the company, right? It's like, I do customer service for small businesses building websites. I do, community engagement for the WordPress community. I do. So I think as you get that, and you'll often find the more specific your why is, the more interesting the conversation will become. Because the conversation becomes, even if the person isn't that small business owner or whatever, they know who your audience is, and it becomes a conversation that you can wheel around and you'll understand what their interests are as well.
Yeah,
the other thing on elevator pitches, as you know, I don't think I go an episode without mentioning ChatGPT, but man, it is good at helping with elevator pitches. The laziest way, drop your on LinkedIn, there's a little option at the top a lot of people don't realize. You can download a PDF of your LinkedIn profile. And it's easier than cutting and pasting the HTML website. So you can get the PDF and copy and paste it into ChatGPT and say, give me an elevator pitch.
I love that.
And play with it, right? Get a couple of different voices in there. I would say try to get it as short and concise as possible, because I think the problem and the reason it's called an elevator pitch is it needs to be short. Like as you said, like nobody cares. I'm sorry, people. And you don't care either. Like when you're listening, so try to make it as concise as possible.
Right. Well, especially at some place like WordCamp, right? Because that's where decisions are being made. That's where companies are meeting and greeting. That's what people are trying to talk to and learn how they can work together. And that's where you're trying to sell your product to agency owners. Like it's a business event. It's fun. It's called camp, but it is 100% a business event. And that's why companies invest thousands upon thousands of dollars to attend and sponsor these events. And so it really is about not just listening to somebody talk about what they do, like you're in a book report. It's about listening for those opportunities, right? Because networking is about opportunities. You can attend, you can learn. I mean, the first WordCamp I ever went to, I didn't understand about the networking part of it. I sat in every session and I just sponged in the information.
Yes. There's two reasons.
Yeah, exactly. After a while, when you realize you kind of heard most of the stuff, or you're so ingrained in the community that there's really not a lot of surprising topics, you spend a lot more time networking and talking to people and learning about other companies and getting information to how to make your own product better. but also learning how you can, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine, those kinds of
100%.
things. Mm-hmm.
I think with networking, there's a lot of just general people skills that work really well. And this is
Mm-hmm.
going to sound very cold and scientific way of people skills, but people's favorite subject is themselves. And
Always.
every woman knows this, but I'll tell the men in the world. The best way to trick someone into having a good conversation is just let them talk about themselves, and they'll
Mm-hmm.
think you had the best conversation in the world, even if you didn't say anything.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. And when you do interview podcasts like I do with WP Coffee Talk, right? People are always like, wow, that was so much fun. And I'm like, all I did was ask you 13 questions and you did all the work. Like I just went the
So
whole
that
time.
said, let's go through a few of our go-to questions for these
Yeah.
ones of like, and I think some of the easy ones make sense. They are repetitive, but where are you from? I think is great. Like
Yep.
obviously want to know where you're from. People love talking about where they're from. I think if you ever want to do an interesting follow-up to get someone talking, I love people to tell me like, oh, what's special about your town, or what's something interesting there
Oh
that like if
yeah.
I ever visited that you would really like recommend, and it gets people lighting up talking about something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that gets you into conversation. I mean, where you live is a very important thing.
It is for sure.
Do you have any of those questions that are your go-tos?
So specifically at WordCamp events and WordPress events, I don't just say, what do you do? I say, what do you do with WordPress?
Smart.
Because if somebody can say, oh, I'm a developer, but if you say, what do you do with WordPress? They'll say, oh, I develop, and they'll follow up with more information, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
I market XYZ company, not I'm in marketing. So when you add that extra little bit about in WordPress, it makes people feel like they belong to the community too, right? So they're more willing to have these conversations, or it's more natural, I should say, to have the conversation. It's not like people are unwilling.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I think that's absolutely. I think another one would probably be how long have you been in the community or how many
Mhm.
word camps have you attended?
Yeah.
Those are a great ones to open up conversation. I think the if elevator pitch is something you get kind of stuck on, go to questions to me. Like
Yeah,
get your elevator
absolutely.
pitch honed in, but like questions is the life hack to conversation.
So I don't know if I ever told you this, but way back when I was married, my then husband, and I went to the Catskills, and one of those like
Mm-hmm.
schmaltzy, uber romantic, heart-shaped bathtubs, like the whole 9 yards kind of place,
Oh,
right?
uh-huh.
I swear to God, I was watching for Johnny Castle to be anywhere around to start dirty dancing with me. I would have carried a watermelon just to say I carried a watermelon. But what was interesting is it was very much like cruise style. Actually, I've never been on a cruise, but what I'm told is cruise style dining. So you just line up and you don't have an assigned table necessarily, but you get
Mm-hmm.
seated with 3 other couples. So there's 4 couples sitting at a table for dinner, unless you specifically pay for a romantic table for just the two of you.
Did you put your keys in the middle, Michelle?
I know, right? So the thing is, like, these couples would tend to just talk amongst themselves behind their menus, and it was very awkward. But you know me, I'm not awkward at all. I'll just like start a conversation. So my go-to with these people, because nobody cared there, like, what do you do for a living? Like, big deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my conversation starter was, if you were on Jeopardy and Alex Trebek said, so what do XYZ, what's your story? What is the most interesting thing about you? The most interesting thing you've done or accomplishment that you would tell Alex Trebek in the break time on Jeopardy? And the
Oh, I love it.
conversations were awesome. People loved talking about. We all laughed about. The only one I really remember is like this woman said she went to a summer camp to learn how to be a circus performer, not to actually be a circus performer, but like to the event to do the high
Yeah.
wire with the, like you see the stars like practicing there, and to tightrope and the stuff like that. And the conversation that went around that was like phenomenal. So that is my go-to question now. Sometimes is like, I might not say it exactly that way because I think Alex Trebek is not as much in people's minds anymore as he used to be that he's gone. But I'll say, like, if somebody were to ask you what's the most interesting thing you've ever done, what would you tell them?
I like that. I like that. I think one more for conversation networking, I'll give a tip for the super networkers of the world, like you and others who, especially in, let's talk about WordCamp specific, but any conference that you might go to that you kind of know the community very deeply. You're in a special spot where you can become a really nice super networker in introducing people that you know, and you perfect the cocktail party invitation. I always like to do that with my friends of like, oh, this is Michelle. She does XYZ. So you get these ones, you get this like
Yeah.
advanced networking where you could do this and introduce 2 people. It's always a fun thing to see like, okay, if I'm introducing Michelle Frechette to Matt Cromwell, what are the 2 things that they're going to talk about?
Right.
Whatever. You guys known each other for years, so not him.
But yeah, But for example, yes.
Exactly.
No, that's a really great one too, is if you can master the art of the introduction, you have gone into super networking. Absolutely. You're beyond just meeting people. Now you're introducing people to others, and that builds you up even more in the community. So
100%.
absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. And then here's my last little I have to talk about this, my selfie challenge. I don't know if you've watched me do
Oh,
this
I
on
was going to
Twitter.
bring that up. I think it is such a good icebreaker.
So the selfie challenge is awesome. It doesn't work for everybody because you kind of have to have a name out there for people to know, right? And have a following. So I'm really blessed that way. But my favorite thing about it is number one, I've raised over $4,000 to help get people to word camps and to sponsor Big Orange Heart before. So actually like almost $5,000 between those three camps that I've done that at. Not only that though, is everybody wants to take a selfie with me. They're tagging me on Twitter.
I
So
love that.
it's boosting my algorithm, it's boosting their algorithm, and it gives me all the photos that I didn't have to take. So now I've got an entire album with people that I might not have approached, but that approached me, and we have all of these pictures together that I can use for forever in other things. And so there's really something fun if you can come up with a gimmick like that. And I don't mean gimmick in a negative way, of course, but like, an event like that where you can really kind of it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a Tiffany from Nexus, prints out her own stickers and brings them to
Yes.
people with kind of her own, I'm not sure if it's her name or her own kind of logo thing, but it's
Hmm.
very memorable way to like different than a business card, and
Yeah.
kind of has your own vibe, not just your whole company's thing. Like it's just
I
about you.
have those too. I have a Michelle Wapu if anybody's interested. I will
It's
send you one.
the smart ladies know that sticker move.
Yeah.
Well, let's hop into. I think one of the things as you get into conversation with people, you'll notice some of the questions Michelle and I were recommending aren't necessarily all about like what is it like what is the thing you can do for me right now.
Right.
It's networking is very soft in the sense of keep your mind open. First of all, is like man, you never know where deals might come from, like of
Hmm.
different things. Or I am the thing I've realized every year I get older is success is only because it's easier to reach out people that you've known for years. Like,
This is
honestly, it's
also
because you're
true.
old and it's people you've known, and you can. That's really because I'm like, oh, kind of doing the same thing, but now I can do it way faster than when I was 25 because I know 10 people that do X, Y, Z that I need. And
Hmm.
I think when you're networking, keep the whole world in mind when you're talking to
Yeah.
people. Like relationships are going to be your key to literally any success you have in life. And it makes
Hmm.
so much easier the bigger your Rolodex is. Oh my God, Rolodex
Yeah.
to call people.
I know. I still had one for the longest time. But the other thing I wanted to ask you about, and you and I are not introverts. I know that you have a different recharge
Mm-hmm.
factor than I do. But what is your advice to people who aren't feeling confident enough? And maybe it's not even confidence, but they're introverted and don't want to approach other people to start these conversations. What do you think
I
is
think,
the Mhm.
yeah, one idea I'd pick up from you actually is you set up a lot of appointments ahead of time and do let people do either a Calendly or even Google Workspace does appointment slots now where folks can set up an appointment with you. You are very extroverted and do that. Some people might be too embarrassed to even do that, right? It's like, hey, set an
Mhm.
appointment up with me anytime. However, I have, and I would certainly recommend this to anybody at any level, to reach out to people before you go to a conference and set up
Mhm.
15-minute calls because I'm trying to remember right now that pause is me trying to think if anybody has ever told me no on that. And the
Uh,
only time I've ever been told no is when I'm really shooting my shot as like a big VC or
yeah.
something. But otherwise, like no, it's
Yeah.
everybody. Yeah, I'll meet. Like
People
of
want
course,
to.
sounds great.
Yeah,
That's why they're going.
exactly.
Like you're in the same boat as everybody else.
Mhm.
Conferences are so weird in this way because so many people go and they think they're the only one feeling this way. And I
Mhm.
promise you, almost everybody else there feels
You
the
are
same
not
way.
alone. Exactly. The other thing is look for people like me. Not me in particular, but people
I
like
like
me.
that.
Because if you know somebody or even like think they might know you and they're an extrovert and you can kind of tag along for even lunch or 10 or 15 minutes, they will probably introduce you to other people, which will help grow your ability to start to meet and know other people too. So I always tell people
Absolutely.
like I am the biggest extrovert at WordCamp. If you are not, find me. I'll introduce you to people. I love that kind of thing.
I love that. Find a wing woman like Michelle is a great tip. Another one is actually to find newbies do this a lot at various conferences, or various introverts. I've done this myself, where you end up finding a buddy. Like you end up with lunch with someone at the first day, and that ends up kind of being your buddy. And
Yeah.
honestly, you end up in a deeper set of networking. You meet less people because you're kind of together doing things. Honestly, I don't hate it. I think it's a decent method
Yep.
to go out, and like you usually don't do it on purpose, but if you find yourself in that situation, I think it's great. You made a nice friend who's gonna probably be a network for connection for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I love it. And by the same token, if you're an extroverted person, don't spend your time with just your buddies, right? Make yourself available to other people. One of my favorite things to do is either sit down at a table by myself and just see who joins me, or
Mm-hmm.
if there's an empty seat at a table full of people I don't know and it doesn't look like they're having a private meeting, because who would at a WordCamp luncheon?
Exactly.
I'll say, "Hey, is the seat taken?" And they'll usually like, "Oh no, you can join us," And then if it's really quiet, I'll be like, "So, what do you do with WordPress?" Just start some
Exactly.
conversations going. What's your biggest
Exactly.
takeaway from the conference so far? Like those kinds of questions can really get conversation going.
Absolutely. Or I mean, we'll talk about food. Everybody will talk about food too.
Food is out. Food is
um,
a great equalizer. Food and the weather. We can always talk about food and the weather.
exactly. By the way, I hear it's gonna be rough out there next week.
Thank God for air conditioning.
Yeah. The other thing I do, so my kind of extroversion, like my bucket kind of runs empty pretty quickly. So I will do it in bursts. Like I'll do like, hey, I'm gonna go and work the floor, meet a lot of people, hang out with people, and then usually like 2 hours, I need like, okay, I'm gonna go sit alone.
I'm
And
done
I'll
for
do
now.
another burst later on. But it helps me not get burnt out and like I don't know, turn into a jerk or whatever else happens when you want to need a Snickers, you know?
Yeah. And that's the other thing, is keep a Snickers in your bag.
Keep a Snickers in your bag always.
Bottle of water and a Snickers. You can never go wrong.
Absolutely. Then I guess we should talk a little bit about though, like how so networking is important, but it's like so what? Like is it important to email people right after? Do you take pictures of name badges? All of these things. What's your method,
Yeah.
Michelle?
So my method is to have people do a selfie challenge with me, and I can follow.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's the smart
That
method. Yep.
that really does a lot. But also, when I am meeting people for the first time and I want to follow up with them, I will take a picture of their badge. And because if I just like scan their badge and I open up a website or something, I'm going to close my tabs on my phone. I'm never going to
100%.
remember what it
Yep.
was. But if I take a picture of their badge, then I will have a memory of what it was, and I'll know what I wanted to follow up with them about. And even just, to DM people on Twitter and be like, "Hey, it was so great to see you at WordCamp.
Yep.
Let me know if you have any questions about the things we talked about, whatever it is." At WordCamp, Phoenix, for example, a whole bunch of us got together and we started to talk about creating a safe space for the LGBTQ plus community in WordPress.
Love that.
And as a result of that, we created LGBTQpress.com and its own Slack channel. So I was able to follow up with people afterwards and say, "Hey, we're moving this project forward. Would love to have you involved if you'd like to be. At the very least, would you like to join the Slack channel?" And start those
And you
kinds
had
of
a big group of
conversations.
people.
I
Mm-hmm.
did. So those are the kinds of things that can really follow an event like that. It doesn't have to be about work. It can also be about other things outside of work and other passion projects that you have, and working together with people in those ways too.
I love that. One other one, I don't know if the WordCamp badges this year will have QR codes on them. Um, but I've taken to very often these days at conferences I go to, printing my own QR
Mm.
that adds me on LinkedIn automatically. So that
Ooh.
folks, yeah, so when they scan it, it opens up their LinkedIn app and adds and goes to my profile so they can follow me immediately.
I'm gonna have to do
Um,
that. I love that.
it worked really well last year, and that way I just went through all my new follows after, and I could send LinkedIn messages. It was a pretty fast way. I also take the pictures of my name badges and do all that kind of jazz. But the
Sure.
LinkedIn one was a fun new one. So I just got a little sticker, put it on my badge, and like, yeah,
I like
scan
that.
and add me. I guess you could do the same for
Perfect.
Twitter or X or what have
Yeah,
you.
for sure. Whatever it's called now.
Well, this was a great one,
I did.
Michelle. Anything else to add?
No, I'm just excited to meet people at WordCamp US and other events, that will follow. WordCamp Rochester's coming up here at the end of September. I'll share one of my networking coups, if I will, if I
Yeah.
may, with you, is that several years ago I ran for public office, did not get elected, but that was on the heels of 12 years of public office for as a school board member. So
Wow.
as a result of running for public office, I met a lot of people who are also running for public office. One of those people happens to be a senator now. And
Right.
I have his phone number. So I texted him And I said, I would love for you to come give an opening, 5-minute opening remarks at this event at September 30th at the School of the Arts. And he was like, absolutely, anything for you. And I was like, who doesn't want to hear that from a senator? So like, you never know
It's
what you can
amazing.
accomplish. Right?
That's the thing. No, it truly is. Like, and I've had so many similar stories like that. And I don't know. This is like a message to like the youth of the world for that. Is like it's so like the more people you meet, man, it the older as you get older, that it adds up.
It really does. It really does. So,
Well,
all
great. Well,
right.
good luck everybody at Word Camp, and I think it's going to be a lovely week. Look out for Michelle to be your wing woman, and we'll see you next
I'll be
time.
there. All right. Bye. This has been Michelle Rochette and Hazel Kimpo with Audacity Marketing. Dare to be different and dominate your market with Audacity.